The target for the remote viewing session that you are about to see is President Joe Biden. Now, there are two focuses, and they are according to time. The first focus is December of 2023. Now, we are interested in what Joe Biden is thinking about the UFO, UAP, extraterrestrial phenomenon. Given all of the disclosure stuff that's been happening with congressional hearings, we're interested in what he thinks about that issue. Is it an important issue? Is he really concerned about it? Is he worried about it? Whatever. Now, the second focus is the same person, President Joe Biden, but this time on August 22nd, 2024. Now, that's the last day of the Democratic National Convention, so if he wins the nomination, that'll be that last day. We're interested in what he knows or thinks about the UAP, UFO, extraterrestrial issue then. And then we're also interested in any type of influences that may be on him with respect to that particular issue. Okay, now, the remote viewer does not know anything about this. The remote viewer does not know the target. The remote viewer does not know anything about the project, but you know because I just told you, so you can follow along with what the remote viewer is describing when the remote viewer goes through the data that they have for the target. So, let's begin.
Hi, everybody. Now we've got Intysam for Deep News. Just to make sure, Intysam, you do not know the nature of the target, correct?
No idea.
Fantastic. All right. So, page 4, you start getting some good initial perceptions. Why don't you just start off there?
All right. So basically, it looks like this is a city, multiple structures, multiple subjects. There's some water, although it doesn't feel extensive. The topography is mostly level. It's like some gentle hills here and there. There's a few non-surface structures here with subjects inside. The light seems to be quite bright, cool temperatures. I was picking up some sort of like energetics, like fire and heat, and also sounds kind of loud here, cityscape sounds. Urban environment, but slightly harsh. So I just deducted New York,
Great. Okay, very good. So we basically have this target taking place in an urban environment. So I see you got some pictures over there, but then on page 6, you started to move to focus 1 and the target subject. Why don't you tell us what you got there?
I guess so. The first thing I got was a larger body, either mass or density, lighter hair color and skin tone, kind of yellowish hair. Deducted Trump because of the yellowish hair, obviously. Male subject, clothing looks formal, bluish tones, like a suit kind of thing. Older subject with wrinkles on his face and a round face. I also deducted Chris Christie because of the round face.
Okay.
So 2 deductions there.
Very interesting. All right. So, what about the deep mind probe? I know you started to label this subject A. So, you deep mind probe subject A. What'd you get?
I got an extremely busy mind, very active mind, like thoughts just flying all over, and kind of gave me like a headache. Just too busy, chaotic. A lot of strategizing happening in the subject's mind. It feels like something that's important to the subject is happening, and something is he's throwing all of his attention towards this important thing that's happening. It felt like they're facing an uphill battle. I could also pick up a female subject in his mind's eye, and it looks like the subject is organizing people in his mind, kind of moving them along like chess pieces, and maybe physically as well, like delegating. The subject has an end goal he really, really wants. He's willing to expend a lot of resources and mental attention to achieve it, and to him, it'll be worth it at the end.
All right, very interesting. So, I know you started to deep mind probe the same subject on concern 1 within focus 1. What'd you get there?
So this concern is quite triggering to the subject. It causes a lot of anger and frustration within him. It feels like it's been a long-term concern or something he's been dealing with for a while now. And there's kind of like a feeling of exhaustion associated with it. So subject A feels like this concern one is unfair. There's collaboration between this subject and others to resolve the issue. And this subject is willing to use underhanded means to resolve this or to deal with this concern. And it feels like that would even the playing field because his opponents are also using underhanded methods too. And I deducted corruption.
Fascinating. All right. So I see you continued that deep mind probe with concern one as well.
Yes. So I saw a flash image of little kids. I deducted Epstein and Epstein Island. I got a sense that there's corruption happening, and this subject and his playing field give off a politician or political vibes.
I see. All right. Well, I see now that you went into a cognitive impairment scale. What'd you get over there?
So, for the internal brain, for the natural internal brain, right? There's some impairment happening there. Because it has like a decay. His brain feels like it's decayed, or parts of falling off, a sensation that, parts of his brains are falling off. Ugh. Kind of what it feels like. For artificial, kind of like if he has any impairment that's coming from artificial means. There's something there that's affecting his memory. So that's the impairments that's there. There is a lot of like hearing and physical impairments, which is, coming from the external side. And that one, I feel like, let me just 1 second. For hearing and physical, feels like subject's actions and decisions, they lay outside of himself. Kind of there's some decisions that are being made outside of him. Or maybe he's taking into account other people's decisions and, external, kind of extraterrestrial. Any impairment coming from there would be a sense of a lot of it is coming from, there was a lot of that, or not quite a lot, higher than mid of impairment.
Well, you had some interesting deductions I'm seeing here as well. It's something, deduction on page 10, as well as another deduction on page 11.
Oh, yeah. That was the hearing and physical impairments. I deducted the king of riders of Rohan and the guy who would whisper in the king's ear from Lord of the Rings. Remember the guy was like all gray and yellow and kind of like almost like the decay thing again. He seemed like he was decaying, and there was this guy just constantly poisoning him. So that was a deduction.
Interesting. What about your other deduction on page 10? I think it's at the top there.
Page 10? Oh, Biden.
Yeah, you seem to have another deduction up there. That's interesting. So you got the two deductions, Biden and the that scene from Lord of the Rings with the King of the Riders of Rohan. Okay, interesting. So I know now we moved on to focus 2, and that's on page 12. So what happened there? You still visited the same concern 1, but now at focus 2. So what went on down there?
So the subject is confident in his ability and resources to be able to deal with concern 1. The deduction was that money talks. If I throw enough money at it, it'll get fixed. That's kind of what I felt the subject was saying. It feels like the subject, it's a subject A versus a group of subjects type situation for this focus 2, concern 1. And there's a sense of a threat that subject A poses in this concern, like him being the threat, and he feels quite dangerous in this focus. Kind of like I deducted mafia, I deducted Putin. I guess I get a sense that subject A uses force to resolve issues he faces, and he's used to using force. He feels justified in using force. My own feeling towards subject A was he's a bad person. That was my own feeling. Subject A has built an empire of sort for himself. Empire is kind of high level, also a deduction.
All right. Well, yeah, you continued on to say a few more things on the next page.
This focus brings out the worst in him,
Hmm.
and this focus focuses on expansion for him.
Him being subject A still?
Yeah.
Okay. And now I see we did another cognitive impairment scale, but this time for focus 2. So this was the second focus, also dealing with the same concerns. So what else were you picking up there? Any differences? What happened?
Well, for his internal brain, it's still quite natural. What I would say about just probing his brain was that whatever this is happening, it's not an impairment, it's his nature. A lot of his own mind is there. For artificial, I put that kind of like a midsection that there's something artificial, more of a crutch to keep energy and emotions at a certain level so he can do his job. So there's an artificial impairment that he uses as a crutch for energy and emotions. Okay, so external brain, the hearing and physical was pretty high. Most of the subjects around him are impaired or tampered or have cognitive interference, or maybe they're planted there. And like extraterrestrial kind of ET impairment, that felt high too. Doesn't notice it because it's a frequency match, like a ping coming to reinforce his own nature. So that's why he doesn't notice it, because it's easy if you're a match, right? Something will just fit right in. AI impairment, not really, not quite. Maybe subliminal messaging.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, that's fascinating. I think that's all the data for the session. Yeah, correct. Great job. Would you like to know, just to make sure, you don't know the target?
I don't know. What is it?
Okay.
What is it?
All right, so let me just hand you the paper over here. Here it is. Okay. And
oh my God.
yeah, this
Sorry,
was
I just read it real quick.
Joe Biden and the UAP disclosure. That was the target. Subject A was Joe Biden. And the focuses, we have focus 1, which was Joe Biden in December 2023 when he is thinking about the idea of UAP, UFO disclosure. Now, focus 2 was the Democratic National Convention in Chicago on the 22nd of August 2024. So from the time of recording this video, that's quite a ways away from now. We got about 8 months from now, I guess, a little more. 9 months, I guess, until that actually happens. So that's pretty much 8 months. That's pretty much what the target was, and yeah, that was pretty much it. And really great job in picking up stuff about the target subject. I mean, we have to remember that you're getting all of this data completely blind. I mean, you pull these 8 numbers out of a random number generator and just start working, and suddenly here we have a description of a man in a suit. You're deducting that it's maybe Trump, maybe Biden, and it was Biden, and you got him in a suit, an older male, really, really great physical descriptions, and you even picked up on these deep mind impairments. I mean, you said that a degradation of the brain, that's something that's quite openly discussed in mainstream media, is people are constantly worried about having Joe Biden doing the job that he's doing with cognitive decline. And that is something that you picked up on in your session here during your deep mind probes at Focus 1. And so also it seems that he seems a lot less focused on the UAP issue when it comes to Focus 2. It seems like his mind probably switched to other concerns dealing with the election at the Democratic National Convention. Right. So, anyway, a very interesting description about Joe Biden here. This sort of deducting mafia Putin type of stuff as well. It's very, very fascinating.
Because if you look at him and his presidential style, you really don't get a sense of like, this guy is very corrupt, right? Like a lot of people have been like, oh, he's actually done a pretty decent job as a president. And other people are like on the other spectrum. But I did not think this was a good place. Like his mind was not a good place to be. Like I said, I didn't like him. Like without knowing who he is, I was like, no, there's corruption. A lot of these things sing corruption.
Yeah, and it's regardless of what anybody thinks about Joe Biden, it seems that he is, not just from your session, but from multiple people, and even without remote viewing, this has been quite the scuttlebutt in a lot of media circles, that he is dealing with, I guess what we will, just to use your words, he's dealing with a King of the Riders of Rohan syndrome of having a person, a group of people influencing him, creating situations, and sort of managing his style of leadership for him, and him not having the mental fortitude to really run his own show.
He does not at all.
Yeah. And so it seems like all the data, not just your session, but a lot of people who touched on this session are picking up similar things, which is fascinating to see corroborating reports in blind remote viewing.
Wow. Interesting. This focus too. He feels dangerous in this concern. Well, that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, it's, the sense of threat and stuff like that. I mean, he might not have his job after that next election. So it's
right.
The Democratic National Convention, the idea is sort of the energy, especially that year, is going to be on the next election, which is deciding whether or not he's going to be president again. So it's it seems like that's a threat. Maybe he's thinking of other threats, though. You never know.
Wow. Well, this is the first Joe Biden session. Cool.
Yeah, this is a great one.
This was coming.
Nice. All right. Any other questions or comments?
No, not really.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody else for watching.